All right, y'all. So, got a fun one today. We are going to remove this old gray, faded, garbagey looking bumper in the front and replace it with that EAG winch bumper that I got. I showed you an unboxing video not too long ago. And also, if you're from the South, you'll recognize what that yellowish dust is all over the front of my car. It's pollen season down here. Yes, the trees try and have sex with us against our will. So anyway, let's go ahead and get started. Oh, sorry, I almost forgot. We're also putting in the steering box, or steering box spacer. And I'll show you what that is in a moment. But anyway, we're doing a little bit differently. So make sure you stay tuned. All right, so I am on the passenger side now. And what we're looking at is this. We've got a couple of things that we're going to have to remove from here. I believe that's a, what size is that? That is 10 millimeter. So that's a 10 millimeter screw or bolt right there. This is, I've got a T45 Torx bit to go in this, this bolt right there. It's just a little small, so you might have to go up a size. Hopefully my T45 will work. And then inside the shadows are going to be a problem here, but you can see those two bolts kind of hiding. And then there's a third one down low down here, I believe. Yeah, there's one down there. And I think those are 15s, at least. I think those are all 15s in there. So it should be the same on the driver's side. We're on the passenger side right now, but this is a Chrysler, and so I take nothing for granted. But let's go ahead and start getting these things taken off. We'll see how it goes. Oh, this thing's so rusted. It's not really moving. I mean, it's spinning, but it's not coming out. Or maybe it is. So, keep going. One thing to keep in mind too on these taking off the front bumper, your vacuum reservoir is right here. And I'm gonna have to disconnect it at some point. It's hiding back here. You can't really see it because it's black. I'm gonna have to disconnect that at some point, and hopefully I'll be able to disconnect it when I start to pull the bumper off, but we'll see. I don't want to snap the line or anything. Those systems are a pain in the butt, and I believe that's what controls like the doors and stuff on your AC and your heat and all that. I don't know what's going on here because I don't know what it's supposed to screw into, but it definitely feels like it's just spinning in place. There must be a nut. Yeah, there's a nut on that side. So this is all rusted out. It's probably going to break, and at this point, I don't give a damn. I'll come back and do that one. Let's see if I can get the Torx thing going here. Now that thing's spinning in place too. See what I mean? Chrysler sucks ass. Do yourself a favor. If you're ever thinking about getting an X-Tray, don't. Not unless you have tons of money to spend on somebody else to do this work for you. I quite frankly get sick of having to run into these kinds of problems all the time. I'll be back in a second. All right, so I was able to get them unscrewed finally. This one, I just used another 10 millimeter combination wrench. So I hung it over the back here, put the box end of the combination wrench over the nut, kept it in place that way, and finished unbolting this. Huge pain in the ass. You can see I've got some whatchamacallits. Somebody help me out here. Vice grips. I had to grip onto this thing that the Torx bolt went into. Let me pull it out and show you what it looks like. Probably some nightmarish Chrysler invented, like, there, that's all it was. It was some half-assed fastener, like sleeve thing that it would bolt into. And once upon a time, I think another end of it, like, it had something like this to keep it from spinning. And of course, that thin metal broke and created a nightmare. So good luck with yours. It wasn't that tough, but it was still a pain in the butt. Like I said, I'm getting sick of this XJ. Now, one of the things I mentioned in the intro, here's your steering box up here, right? Let me get some more light on that. That's your steering box right up there, okay? Your spacer that I'll be replacing is between the frame here and the, let me get my arm out of the way. It's between the frame right there and the steering box here. And I'll show you a better view of it once I get there. Normally, you would disconnect this plastic in the wheel well and come at it over the driver's side wheel and get the 3 bolts. But since we're taking off the bumper, I'm just going to disconnect the other side after I finish this side, and then I can get at it from there, from the front, from where the bumper used to be, I hope. That's the plan anyway. We'll see if that works. So I've got those first 2 bolts and Torx bolts, bolt and a Torx bolt removed. Trying to get more light so you guys can see what I'm doing next. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into here and get those 3 15 millimeter bolts if I can. Hopefully it won't be that hard, but there is a lot of rust. And I don't know if you can see it here, but that's like right where my hand is, right where my finger's pointing now, right up in there is your vacuum reservoir. So good time to make sure yours isn't cracked or broken or whatever. Let's see what I can do with my 15 millimeter socket. Hopefully there'll be enough space for me to work in here. Oh, that's tight. But I'm not hearing creaking like it's rusty. That's good. Oh, man. Yep, so that's it. Shooey. And that thing does not go all the way through either. Hopefully there's not something on the other side that's tacked on and it's going to break. But anyway, you get the idea. So I'm going to do these 3 bolts here and then I'll come back. Okay, so. All right, finally got these 3 bolts off inside there. I don't know if you can see with all the shadows and everything. It's hard. But anyway, those stupid 3 bolts all have those same types of clips inside the frame. All 3 of those clips broke. And so I had to figure out a way with vice grips. This whole process took me about an hour just to get those 3 bolts off because of the breaking, crappy Chrysler engineering decisions. So anyway, there's your vacuum bottle. I decided to go ahead and remove this piece of corner molding here. Remember, you took off the 10 millimeter bolt here. There's another 10 millimeter bolt right here you take off. And then there are 2 8 millimeters, at least on my car. It's a 2000 XJ. Here and here that you take off. And then you can remove that plastic kind of corner piece to your bumper. And then that frees up the access to 2 Torx bolts that are kind of, the light's in the way, 2 Torx bolts facing in toward the reservoir itself that you can then unscrew and let this hang free. That's what I'm going to do next. Then I'll go over here to the driver's side and take off that side of the bumper, and then hopefully we can remove the bumper completely. All right, got the bumper off finally. turns out those 8mm bolts, the ones that kind of go in here on the upper part of that corner piece, you do have to take those off anyway to get the bumper off. Otherwise, it'll just hang there. So anyway, here we are over on this side. And there, I don't know if you guys can see, there are 2 of the bolts holding in the steering box. 2 of the bolts right there. And maybe you can see the third one. It's right here, kind of in front of us. So now I can access all of those. And I'm going to go ahead and get started in taking those off. Now, what usually happens here, is a mess because it's a Jeep Chrysler. But in all seriousness, what usually happens is that these things break off. Now, I've heard that if you start, putting in penetrating oil, days in advance and stuff, maybe they won't break off. I just, I always now, I'm so jaded, I just assume the worst is going to happen and that they're going to break, and I don't even bother doing penetrating oil. So anyway, let's go ahead and get started on that. So that's 16mm. I'm going to go ahead and get a breaker bar started here and use that to start breaking them free. See if that one looks like it might come free. Famous last words. One of those stupid brackets that broke just fell out. Wow, that's amazing. Usually, you can see there's blue Loctite on there. And usually that plus corrosion just freeze those things in place. So I got lucky with that one. Let's see if I can do a second one. There's 2. One thing I forgot to mention, I'm going to pause here for a second. One thing that I forgot to mention about why it's so important to replace your spacer here, and that is that it will contribute to death wobble. If your spacer, the original ones that came with these Cherokees, was aluminum, and if it breaks up and snaps and all that kind of stuff, it can be a contributing factor to kind of destabilizing the front end. So eventually, not only am I going to replace the spacer now, eventually I'm going to get a stiffening bracket. It's this big bracket that basically goes across the whole front end and basically secures your steering box even more. But a good start is getting a new spacer that's made of steel instead of aluminum installed there. So I think, you know what? I think all three of those are coming out. Wow, this is complete opposite of the experience I had just now with the bumper. So what I'm going to do, before I take that all the way out, what I'm going to do is, I'm not going to show you this, but you can imagine where the steering box is. You can see my sway bar. I'm going to hopefully guide the steering box so that it comes out and kind of rests on the sway bar itself. And then just hopefully it'll stay there. I think it will. But it looks pretty heavy. It's hard to judge how heavy these things are. I've never dealt with a steering box before, so we'll find out. Yeah, it's coming out. All right, so there is your factory spacer. Mine did not break. I could have sworn that something had broken. So that's interesting. But I'll put the new one in. Next thing I'll show you is putting the new one in, and then we'll do the bumper after I put the new spacer in. So stay tuned. I'll be right back. Now we're looking at basically the passenger side from underneath. You can see that that sphere thing there is the vacuum reservoir, and the instructions that come with the EAG bumper indicate that it comes with a set of self-tapping sheet metal screws. Well, mine did not. So what I'm going to do is, I've got some sheet metal screws of my own. They're small. I'm not sure what size they are, but pretty much sheet metal screws in general are easy to find. Just find some that you think are the right size for yours. And this is the way I'm going to do it. There are many ways you can do it. You can actually take the reservoir and bolt it onto the bumper itself when you go to install. You can remove this, unclip the reservoir, and put it somewhere in the engine compartment. I don't want to put mine in my engine compartment because this is plastic, and that engine compartment can get really, really stinking hot, and I'd rather not put it in there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to screw it down to here. This fender brace here is not too thick. I'm going to drill a hole here, put in a sheet metal screw, and secure this bottom end to that hole. And then the top end of the reservoir, I might drill out the sheet metal screw hole and just zip tie that to the actual fender brace there. So let's go ahead and see how this works. I've already marked the place where I'm going to drill. I unfortunately don't have any oil. You probably want to use some sort of oil to prolong the life of your drill bit, since you are drilling metal here. But I'm not going too far, and it seems to be making good progress. If you have self-tapping screws, even better. That might work without having to actually drill. So that got through. Let's see if I can get this tiny little screw to work for me. The line just makes this bottle hard to actually keep in place because it's kind of a stiff line. Let me see. I can just do something like this. Let me make sure I got that where that needs to be. All right, that's this is the smallest screwdriver I have, and it's too big, so I'm going to go to my ratchet set here. Okay, so that's got that. Actually, just one. That's really secure. I might not worry about the zip tie on the other one. I'm just hoping that the bumper will go flush the way or wherever it needs to go. I hope that this bottle doesn't get in the way. But if it does, we'll find out and I'll come back to move it. So on to the next step. Next thing we're going to want to do, let me move this out of the way so you can see it. That thing right there hanging down where my thumb is pointing to, that's a horn, and there's one on the other side. We're going to loosen up the bolt that holds it in place, and then we're going to kind of push it in and up a little bit so that it's not hanging down. We need to do that so we can get at this. The liner here, you're going to have to cut the liner pretty much in the same orientation as your fender support bracket here. So, but first we gotta move those horns out of the way. That's a 13 millimeter. And that is really rusted in there. So what I may do, it looks like I'm gonna have to bend this thing that it's hanging from. So just be careful, you don't want to smash your horn. There, it's bent now. I can tuck it up out of the way and now retighten it. And y'all, I have never actually done this before. This is just what it says to do on the instructions. So if you all know a better way to do it, or have an idea or something that I'm missing, I'm all ears. Let me know in the comments. A lot of you guys have much more experience than I do doing this kind of mod to a Jeep. All right, that's it. Do the same thing to the other side. Y'all, I have gone over the pictures in this instruction manual over and over again. I've looked online for pictures, and the best I can tell is that you want to cut the liner here. You're going to have to cut your wheel well liner. This little hole down here at the bottom right here at the corner, that ties into your fender bracket right there. So I would leave that. And then you've got a diagonal line. I've drawn it just below my fender support right here so that I leave a little bit just in case. If I have to trim it down further, I can. I drew wrong right here where it's crossed out. Don't do that. So I follow it up to here, and then it goes straight across, even with your fender right here. And it's worth noting that mine's a 2000 XJ. If you have an earlier model XJ, yours is going to look different. You might have to actually trim and grind the metal part of your fender. So this is not going to look the same. You know, you're going to have to find out depending on what model yours is. If you've got a 2000, this should be pretty much the same. I'm going to try something here. I'm going to try using some tin snips to do the cutting. I don't know if it'll work or not, but we'll see. This is just plastic, so it should work. Might not look pretty, but maybe I can come back later and clean that up. It's hard to get some angles here, but that's pretty darn easy. So that's all you're doing here is just cutting along that line. And when you get up to here, you might have to use some sort of a box cutter or something like that. And then you're just going to come straight across here as well. So I'm going to finish this up, and then we'll move on to the next step. But I want to do it off camera so I can be careful. It's actually really hard to do this stuff around the camera and the lighting and everything. We are now going to go back to the steering box. And there's my old steering spacer. Next to it is a cheap one that I picked up off of Amazon for like 20, 25 bucks. I'll put the link in the description below. And right there is a fender tie-in bracket. I got 2 of those from Dirt Road Off-Road and Dirt Bound Off-Road, and they're really good. I'll put the link also down in the description below. And I painted both of those. And here are the replacement hardware. I thought maybe the bolts would snap, so I got some replacement hardware. Those are 7/16 inch bolts, 4 inches long, UNC, and compatible washers and lock washers too. So that's all new hardware. That's going to go in to secure the steering box. So let's go ahead and get started on that job. And then once we've done that, I'm going to put the, right now I'm going to be working on the driver's side. I don't know how I'm going to put that tie-in bracket, this thing. I don't know how I'm going to put that on the passenger side, because the bolt holes are a little different on the passenger side going through the frame than they are on the driver's side. But that's not your problem. If at the very least, I think I can get 2 bolts in. Out of the 4 holes there, I can get 2 bolts in, and that'll be enough for now. I'll come back later someday and finish that job. Hopefully I won't forget. But anyway, let's go ahead and get started putting the steering box back in. These tie-in brackets are really easy to use. The square part points forward and lines up with your 3 bumper bolt holes, the ones that we just removed, okay? This top hole right here will be a steering box hole, and these 3 holes are all steering box holes. So we're going to go ahead and take advantage of those 3 holes, and we're going to put the steering box stuff through it. For now, we're going to let that, well, I guess it doesn't want to hang. There you go. Get our bolts out. I only need 3. I'm going to get 3 washers and 3 lock washers. And I'm just kind of, I've got my other hand on the other end of the frame so that I can put the bolt almost flush with the frame on the other side, because we still have to put in our spacer for the steering box, and don't want to get in the way of that. But I also want to just put these through so that, I'm doing this blind, I have no idea where the frame hole is. There it is. I want to do this part now so that so that these are all set to go when I start hand tightening them into the steering box itself. You're going to want to definitely hand thread these. You don't want to start off right off the bat using an impact wrench or stuff, because if you get cross-threaded in your steering box, that's a very, very bad day. Not a good day at all. So there they are. They're all kind of hanging out. Let's go ahead and take the camera and move it. Now, I'm going to have to do this. There's no good way to put the camera so that you can watch me work. But you can see the three ends of my bolts are kind of just sticking out. The new spacer that I have is going to go on. I'm trying to think of how it orients. It's going to go on like this, kind of with the hole off by itself that goes towards the front. This long section here goes towards the top, and the flat side of the spacer actually goes up against the frame, right? So I'm just going to kind of place that up in here. Apologize for the not so great view. Once I've got that in place, then I'm going to take these bolts, and my free hand is on the other side, and I'm just pushing the bolts through a little further, getting them through the holes in the spacer. So this will hopefully help keep the spacer in place for a little while. Okay. This is all much easier to do with another person, and I'm going to have to do it off camera for that reason. But you can see my spacers in place. Now what I have to do is take the steering box itself, which is right there, and with one hand I'm going to have to push it up against the spacer, and with the other hand I'm going to have to start one by one getting those bolts threaded by hand. And then once I've got them all confidently threaded in by hand, then I can go to my ratchet wrench or whatever and finish the job. So apologize for not showing you this, but you get the idea, hopefully, that you know, if you've got somebody to help you do this, great. If not, you're going to have to do what I do and just make the best of it until you get all three bolts seated. I'm coming back to do this quick video here. I've already done the job, but I'm coming back to do this quick video here to remind you to put red Loctite on these bolts. I forgot to. It's okay. I'm going to mark the bolts to make sure I know if they're going to, if they spin out. But definitely want to put some Loctite in there. It's pretty important to keep your steering box nice and secure. We've got the bracket on now, and I've just got it hanging here free, okay? And I've put the three bolts in. These are M10 bolts. The one on the very back threads directly into a threaded hole in the frame. And then these two have nuts on the other side. We've got washers and lock washers on them. And these are 16 millimeter. You're going to need 16 millimeter socket to tighten these. The way you want to orient these brackets, see how it curves? And you've got that face with the four holes. That curve goes in, right? So I'm on the driver's side here. There's your wheel, and the curve goes in, right? So it's open on this side. And then on the top, you'll see there's a shelf. That shelf has to be on the top end of the bracket, right? At least that's according to the instructions anyway. So now from here, what I'm going to do is these holes that the bolts slide into are not perfectly round. They're actually slots, so that it has a little play up and down. I'm going to hold this as straight as possible, eyeballing it, and then I'm going to tighten these down, and I'm going to go to the other side, and I'm going to do the same. Now, before we can put this on the car, at least according to their instructions, you have to actually attach the bull bar to the actual bumper itself. So I've gone ahead and gotten a couple of these bolts in just to hold the bull bar in place. And in between the bull bar itself and the bumper are those two pads that I showed you. They're kind of like parallelogram shaped, and I don't know what they do or what their purpose is, but it doesn't matter. I put them in there. That's where they're supposed to go. And then these hex head kind of hex wrench bolts go through, and on the other end you've got a nut, a washer, and a split washer. Okay, so let me try and really just quickly show you the geometry of what it's going to look like on the other end. Sorry, doing this with one hand is difficult. Right, so that's what it's going to look like. So you've got your washer against the underside of the bumper, your split washer against the washer, then your nut against the split washer, and of course that hex wrench head right there, button head, is facing out to the air. So that's how you do it. You got 8 of these to do, and then once you've done that, we can go ahead and put the bumper on the front of the Jeep. Final steps. We are so close to the end here. A word about what I'm doing. I am working alone, and I don't have anyone to help me put this bumper in place. It's about 100 pounds, pretty tough to lift and put the bolts in at the same time. You've got bolts on either side here. So here's your bracket. Let me get some light up here so you guys can see better. So there's your bracket, and this is the bracket that's attached to the front end of, we did this just before here. It's attached to the front end of the Jeep, and then here are the 4 bolts that have to line up with those slots, okay? And it's just a face-to-face mating right there. Now, how I did it alone is what I don't recommend. I've got a ratchet strap, basically. Let me get this light out of the way now. I've got a ratchet strap, some cardboard to protect my Jeep, but I still think it's cringy that it's going over the fiberglass right there. But 100 pounds spread out over a wide surface area, I'm probably okay. I do not recommend this, however. You could damage your Jeep doing this. Not to mention, the other end of the ratchet strap actually goes through the engine bay and hooks onto my sway bar right there. It's not touching the radiator or the fans or anything like that. It's totally free and clear inside the engine bay, so there's no danger there. But the purchase that I'm getting on the sway bar isn't perfect. This is 100 pounds. If it falls at this point on my feet or whatever, unless I'm wearing steel-toed boots, and even then it's not a guarantee, I'm breaking some bones, man. I'm going to be in a world of hurt. So please don't do this. Get a friend to help you at this stage. I have to do it this way because I'm working alone. You don't. So anyway, I'm going to go get the bolts ready. Then I'll come back and just show you how to bolt it up. But at this point, I think you probably got the idea. All right, so I've got 1 bolt in on each side, and I feel much safer now. It's not going anywhere, but I do want to get all 4 bolts in just to be sure. And the way that this works is like any standard kind of bolt slash lock nut slash or lock washer slash washer setup. What you're going to do, your bolts are going to be arranged like this, right? Where you've got the washer on the bottom, the lock washer next, and then the hex head of the bolt right here on top. And then what you do is, first of all, make sure everything's aligned right. And if it's not, if you can't align it, you may have to go back in, take the bumper off, put it down, and then go back in and adjust your brackets up or down. But mine are all aligned and everything, and you come in with the bolt from the back through the bracket slots and into the hole in the actual bumper itself. The hole in the bumper is threaded, okay? So it's going to thread into the bumper itself. And make sure you don't cross thread it. Start it, with your hand and everything, and then go from there. So at this point, you all know how to bolt things together. And there, that one went in much easier than the one I was trying. So it may be that I have to put a few in before this one right here actually kind of lines up the way it should. But anyway, that's it. Congratulations, you put a bumper on. I don't know if I'm going to put my D-rings on or not, but you know, those are pretty simple. I don't think you need a how-to video on how to put on D-rings. You've replaced, if you've done what I did, you replaced your spacer for your steering box, and now you've got a nice new EAG bumper on. By the way, I did an unboxing video on the EAG bumper, and I gotta say, I'm really happy. And Vicious Off-Road did a good job packing it. There's no blemishes on it at all. So it's nice. I've got a new looking bumper, at least, on this old piece of junk. So maybe I'll have to fix up the rest of it now. So I'm gonna put a few more bolts in, take the ratchet strap off, and finish up the job. Like, subscribe. Hope you enjoyed this video. And I just realized I'm holding the phone up, so you can't see the bumper. Anyway, like, subscribe, Doc out. Hey, so I just wanted to come back real quick and show you guys what it looks like on the finished Jeep, and I put the KC highlights on. So here's a quick video I did for my shorts in my Instagram channel. Hope you like the look. Hey y'all, Doc here. Finished putting on my EAG bumper, winch bumper. Gonna get a winch soon for that. And some nice KC highlights Apollo series. Really happy with this. Super easy setup. Easy to put the bumper on, easy to put the highlights on. I've got a full video on the bumper coming up soon. Like, subscribe to my YouTube channel, Doc out. Oh, you made it to the end. That's awesome. Listen, I'm Doc. I'm the one who's, you know, the voice behind these videos. And I really appreciate you taking the time to actually watch the whole thing. That's fantastic. If you've got time, if you want to, if you like the video, hit like and subscribe. I really appreciate it. Don't forget to hit the bell button so you get notified of new videos when I put them up. I'm going to try and do one a week. And I'm going to do a bunch of Instagram stuff, so make sure you follow me there and on Twitter. Instagram's going to be the shorter stuff. I don't have any merchandise yet. I'm planning to as the channel grows. If I succeed, I'll get some merch. For now, if you really want to help me in another way, you like these videos enough, I'm going to put links to my books in the description of the video. I'm a science fiction author in my spare time as well, so I'm juggling a lot of balls. But anyway, I really appreciate it. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you at the next one. Hey, do me a favor and turn this junk off. I don't know how to deal with tech.